This presentation will focus on teaching Washington State social studies by using project-based and problem-based learning to maximize student engagement. My name is Adam Seal, and I'll be guiding you through this presentation. So why problem-based or project-based learning? As you can see, there's a picture here of a small seedling and also a full-grown sunflower. And basically what problem-based and project-based learning can do is they can increase the motivation and enhance the learning of all of your students in an interesting, collaborative, and exciting way. Rose 2010 states that students are able to self-regulate. They're in charge of how things interest them, what they're willing to put effort into. We want to get students who are independent, self-directed, self-actualizing learners. The PBLs can do this for you and for your students. Here's a chart explaining project-based learning versus problem-based learning. This was adapted by John Larmer. As you can see, some of the similarities in both of these styles of active learning include that students are able to build their 21st century skills. It provides authentic applications of context and skills. They're based on an open-ended question or task. And they emphasize student independence and inquiry. Now, there are a few differences. If you look over to the left, project-based learning often includes different multidisciplinary approaches by including multi-subject areas. It could last for weeks or even months, and there are usually steps involved that the teacher will assist students with. If you look over to the right, some of the differences between problem-based learning is that it's usually just a single subject, but it can be multi-subject. Some of the problem-based learning tends to be a little bit shorter, but it can be lengthy. And the product may actually not be something tangible. It may just be a proposed solution expressed in a presentation. So here's an example of using project-based learning to address social studies expectations in 4th grade. One of the Washington State grade level expectations is that students will be able to understand how maritime and overland exploration, encounter, and trade helped to define eras in Washington State history from time immemorial to 1889 when it became a state. The student goals to describe global interest in the region of the Pacific Northwest by discussing the countries and explorers that visited Washington prior to statehood. Here's an example of what that might look like in a 4th grade classroom. The first step in describing this is to think of the project that students will be actually creating. And it's broken down into 3 steps to describe this. Step 1 is through group collaboration, research of secondary sources, and different interviews. Students will identify countries and explorers who visited the Pacific Northwest prior to Washington statehood in 1889. The project students will be doing is they will be creating an explorer journal. By working in groups, students will be able to select a format that is appropriate for their group members, and they will create a product of an actual explorer journal, and then they will choose a different method to present that to other 4th grade classes at our school. They could choose something that's actually tangible or something that's digital, such as using a method of integrating technology such as iMovie or PowerPoint. The third step is that they will include different sections in the Explorer Journal. These different sections will be given to the students: biography, representing country, reasons why those explorers and countries chose to explore Washington State and the Pacific Northwest, map of the explorer route, and then the discoveries result of the exploration. So with project-based learning, there's actually a project that students will collaborate in. They have a deal of choice and they can choose different things, but there are some guidelines. The teacher will act as a facilitator and assist students in directing their research and other components of the project, but the learning's up to the students. and by working together, they'll be able to create that end product. Let's take a look at problem-based learning. Here's a different standard from Washington State Social Studies curriculum. Washington State Grade Level Expectation 3.1.2. Understand the physical, political, and cultural characteristics of places, regions, and people in the Pacific Northwest, including the difference between cities, states, and countries. The student goals are broken down into being able to describe landforms and aspects of climate and different natural resources, and then also explain the cultural characteristics, distribution of population, and be able to explain where the location of Washington State is in relation to other places and countries. So here's an example of what a problem-based learning may look like in the classroom. If you look at the bottom, this pyramid is built on the foundation of a fourth grade problem that will be stated to the students. Here's the problem. A fourth grade student and their family is moving to Washington State. Due to classified reasons, they don't know anything about Washington State and need your help finding where to move. This might also be known as the launch. It's engaging the students in an interesting way when the problem actually is presented to them. I would maybe choose to use a video clip or create some type of interesting, engaging presentation to share this scenario with the students. The next step of the pyramid is that students will identify the physical features of different regions of Washington, cultural characteristics, distribution of population and languages, and Washington's location in relation to states and other countries. Those came right from the standards that the students are expected to learn. And finally, the students will be working together in the collaborative group to propose 3 possible locations in different regions of Washington for the fourth grade student and their family to move to. The students will also be asked to explain why these 3 locations were selected. We'll wrap up this presentation by returning to the picture of the sunflower seed sprouting and the full-grown sunflower blossoming. As you've learned, problem-based and project-based learning can truly take students' learning, motivation, and engagement to new and exciting levels. Here are the references that were used to create this presentation.